I'm McKinney Smith. After going through a divorce, my sister passing away, experiencing narcissistic abuse, and some significant health scares, I realized through sharing my story that I wasn't alone in my suffering. Suffering, subjective distress generated by the experience of being out of balance. In a deep dive to holistically heal mind, body, and soul is where I discovered peace, clarity, and connection. It is impossible to be truly wise without some real-life hardship, and we cannot develop post-traumatic wisdom without making it through, and most importantly, through it together. Social connection builds resilience, and resilience helps create post-traumatic wisdom, and that wisdom leads to hope. Hope for you and others witnessing and participating in your healing, and hope for your community. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. Thank you for joining us on the Heal Her podcast, HEAL. Honor, elevate, and love her podcast, formerly known as the Walk in My Stilettos podcast, the top 1.5% most popular show globally, where we have conversations with extraordinary women on their journey toward wholeness and harmony. And since you're already here, you may as well subscribe. As a certified mindset coach guiding women towards peace, clarity, and connection within, supporting the direction of the system toward wholeness, my goal here is to help you thrive. Carmen Lopez is a television producer with credits that include the successful Love and Hip Hop and Black Ink Crew franchises, weTV's Hustle and Soul, and Complex Network's Good Looking Out. As a talent manager, she's worked with Slick Rick, the most successful British rapper in history, Missy Elliott, Jagged Edge, and has given a platform to artists, especially women in music, such as Cardi B, Amara, Negra, and Trina. MC Lopez is the founder of MCL Media, an independent production company that captures incredible stories and characters that entertain and impact. Since the company's relaunch, MCL Media has produced hundreds of hours of cable programming and digital work for top networks and streaming giants, including VH1, BET, MTV, weTV, Complex Networks, Peacock, Netflix, and Facebook Watch. Carmen is focused on mentoring youth in television production and pushes to increase visibility for minorities and women in the industry. She's passionate about immigration reform and works to provide music therapy for the elderly in Miami alongside her mom's organization, the Algo Nuevo Foundation. So please welcome to the show, Carmen Lopez.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to come on and share your journey with us.
Let's see how it goes.
I feel like this conversation for me on my end has been a long time coming. You know, I've been connected with you on Instagram for years and followed your journey, your evolution. I believe there was an event probably back in like 2017, 2018, I can't remember exactly. But I had come to Miami for an event to, I guess, moderate as part of the panel. And you were later on in that day, you were speaking on one of those panels. So I had an opportunity to hear a little bit of your journny. And I feel honored that I get to have.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. That's very, very sweet. It's always an honor and a privilege to be able to, have people that are interested in hearing, what your life and your journey is about. It's something that I never take for granted. It's not I'm usually, and you're more in front of the camera than I am. So these opportunities and conversations are always a little bit, I'm a little introvert, so to speak. That's why I stay behind the camera. So we'll see how this conversation plays out. But I loved I remember, when we finally did connect on social media and just the name of your platform, I was really compelled by it. I thought it was super dope. And then being able to just kind of scroll and see, some of the different individuals you've talked to, I thought was really awesome. So, I know it's been a while coming since we've been connected. So I'm thankful that we finally had the chance to connect in this way. So I hope that, our conversation is, helpful for me, helpful for you, and helpful for anybody who decides to listen, and hopefully they get something from it. So
I definitely know that this conversation is going to be fruitful. And whenever someone tells me that they're an introvert, I get excited because people may not guess it off the bat, which is why I try to share it often. But I'm extremely introverted. And I know that introverts, we prefer deep conversations, more intimate conversations. We're not really, with the surface level, the small talk. So whenever someone tells me that they're an introvert, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great conversation.
You just gotta scratch through the show a little bit, but yeah, typically, I mean, I'm comfortable in big environments, but I think as I've gotten older, I've really appreciated, like you said, intimate spaces, intimate settings, just connecting with honest people. In my career, I've done that. I've connected with just regular people, even if they, end up being stars, they're still regular people that were in, I don't want to say irregular situations, but situations that, we just always saw and witnessed, but never was a part of. So, I feel like I'm such a cheerleader for the underdog because I was always one. So yeah, like introverts, it takes a little minute, but, as I've gotten older, I've really appreciated just continuing to connect with real people and learn their journeys too. So, I understand why you have the platform that you have, because there's nothing better than just hearing real stories out about real people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that because I feel like people have this impression that if someone is famous or a celebrity or influencer, like that their life isn't similar to theirs. And the beauty that I have found in even doing this podcast is, women that I've admired from afar that are building, multi-million-dollar businesses and, doing all these extravagant things. They are human. Like their stories, we connect to their stories. A lot of us have similar situations that have happened to us or similar experiences, even, childhoods and backgrounds. So I love hearing the realness because, social media shows the highlight reel, TV,
right.
Shows all of those things, but getting to know the person on a human level is what excites me.
Yep. Same here. Yeah. Like that's the one thing, I work in the unscripted space, and I've been doing so for over a decade now. And, the idea is putting in front of the lens people who have not been used to, the cameras and the lights and all that stuff, and just kind of hearing their story. And so, being able to like see the behind the scenes of like people having, these real situations and being brave enough to like live their truth in front of a camera, regardless of judgment or criticism or opinions of people, is I think a very brave thing to do, regardless of like, people's opinions on the unscripted space and, non-actors, for lack of a better phrase, coming on television and just kind of like living their truth. A lot of the shows that we love to watch that are scripted and these films are really inspired by real life situations and real life events. So I think like, sometimes that space gets, very judged, and it's only because people don't take the chance to really peel back the layers and understand, there's a family member or a friend or an acquaintance or someone in our professional world that, we know that mirrors like what we're watching on television or even mirrors ourselves. And I think sometimes people are so quick to criticize and judge other people's situations as opposed to just understand, and I think so my career has really put me in spaces where it's really hard to sit there and just kind of judge somebody's situation, just because you really look at it and you're like, damn, like you think about your life sometimes and like the stuff that you've gone through, and then you kind of like learn somebody else and realize like you have to count your blessings,
Absolutely. When you said the people who are going in front of the camera and living their life authentically, like, just living out their truth in front of a camera.
Right.
when you spoke about them being brave, I totally resonate with that. And I feel like vulnerability takes courage. And I think
Absolutely.
a lot of people, especially because of their own childhood, wounds or traumas and insecurities, they will see someone living out their truth and judge them, not necessarily because there's something wrong with that person is doing, but because within themselves, they don't see themselves being able to do that because of their own shame or because of their own insecurities. So it's really like their judgment is a projection of their own inner things that need to be worked on.
Right. Absolutely. I super agree with that. Not sure if this is how we were supposed to start. But we just kind of like, I feel like we just kind of dove in. So if you want to reel it back,
Yeah.
I'll let you take the wheel, ma'am.
No, this is great because this kind of just like, sets, I guess, the tone for the conversation because it's kind of what I want to get into. So, speaking about childhood, before we get to how you got to where you are today and your impressive resume and all the amazing people that you've had the opportunity to work with and all the beautiful work that you do, I would love to know, what did you want to be when you were a little girl and how is that connected to who you are today?
That's a great question to start this off. I grew up in the performing arts. My mom, I come from a line of like artists and performers. My grandfather was a trumpet player in his country. My family's from Cuba. And, so he was a shoemaker and he was also a trumpet player. And then my mom, she's a singer. And she didn't realize her dream until an elderly age. So my mom is in her 70s now and has a full band and performs twice a month, at her age. And she said she didn't start singing until she was 45, but she always had this burning passion inside of her of, wanting to be on a stage and perform and sing. And she just wasn't able to do that because of lack of opportunities in her country. Mm-hmm. So she sort of, but that's the real artist, their passion doesn't die regardless of age. So, at the age of 45, my mom began to sing and be a part of a community group. And then from there, she's transitioned into like her own thing. And, from there, she opened up a nonprofit and she does music therapy for senior citizens who also have sort of that burning desire to either perform or be a part of the arts. So, I say that to say that the lineage has always been there. So growing up, I was around a lot of music, a lot of arts. My mom, again, she started her band, when I was a young girl. So there would be Thursday night rehearsals at my house growing up in my apartment. And so I just really grew up around this really cultured and diverse community around me. And growing up in Miami, I was born in Jersey. I grew up in Miami. There's, such a melting pot of different people in the neighborhood that I grew up in. There was down the block, there were, Central Americans, there were Caribbeans, there were, Black people and Caucasians. And so there was all these different environments around me that I grew up in. So the arts and performing and being on a stage was something that I, just naturally fell into. And, I thought that's what I always wanted to do. And then, I became a teenager and, I gained some weight. And then I was still performing with my mom because I was a dancer for her. But, like becoming a teenager, and then into a young adult, like life just transitioned me into other ways. But one thing that always sort of like really stuck with me was that people never knew the behind the scenes of what it took to get to a stage, whatever that stage may be. So if it's in front of a stage when you're performing or in front of a television or in front of anything where there's a crowd of people, the hard work, the sweat, the tears, the nervousness, everything that involves getting you to that point of being in front of folks was always just so fascinating for me. And I think that's how I sort of fell into this. I started working in music as an internship and then it transitioned to television. But yeah, going back to your question, growing up as a little girl, like I, being in the arts in some form or fashion was always, I guess, my destiny from the lineage that I grew up in.
I love how, so first of all, I love how throughout all of that, it's almost like I felt your love for your mom.
Oh, yeah, like my mom and I were the same. A lot of people would say, but I you never realize until you get older, like the real sacrifice that your family makes, in order to groom you into the adult that you should become in society. And I felt like, I have this passion always when I talk about my mom, because I'm just so proud that she didn't allow, judgment or criticism or her age or, doubts to cloud her goal of wanting to, live her truth and live out her dream. So I always speak about that because I'm just so proud that, she at this age is still doing what she does. And then also like, it's an appreciation for who she is and the lack of that growing up. I think, a lot of times young people, kids and children, we just don't realize, how wonderful our parents can be. Obviously we come from that environment. We take for granted a lot of stuff that our families sacrifice for us. And, I really fell into that when I was a young person. And then so as an adult and just kind of coming into my own and maturing and just realizing life. And again, the lack of judgment that I try to have for people just because of all the walks of life I've met. My mom, I'm realizing that she's human. And, and then she had her own path to walk before she got to where she is. So I speak about that really highly and openly only because I grew from that when I was younger,
It's beautiful to hear, not only how much love you have for your mom when you speak of her, but also, the theme of that it's never too late to start or pursue your passions.
Amen.
Mom, going into her pursuing her passions, in her 40s and what she's doing now with work in the community. It's beautiful to hear. And when you start in the beginning, you said you come from a family of artists. Like to me, that just said you come from a very passionate family.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I didn't find out until later in life that my father's father was from Cuba.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I guess my dad didn't really have a relationship with his father growing up, and I'm not even sure if he's still with us, like alive. But I know that my family had told me that my father's father was from Cuba. I was like, oh, okay, so I have some history there that I need to learn about. So I ended up going in 2020.
We are all connected, ma'am. We are all
yes.
of us are connected, and it's just the amount of ingredients that we each have is a little bit different. You may have a little more, melanin or dulce de leche, depending on what your complexion is, but ultimately we are all coming from the same place in that. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And I guess no matter what, not even just culture, gender, whatever you want to call it, it's always important for us to have representation in order for us to feel like we're a part of something. So I would love to know for you, how important is it for you to have representation as a Cuban American?
It's super important for me for just representation of underrepresented people, and I think my whole life I've just kind of been exposed to, like, again, the underdog thriving and figuring out their own. My mom, just going back to my mother, and, the elderly population is something that a lot of people kind of forget as you get older, like sort of, it's just different as you get older. So I think that my mom, being someone that was a little advanced in age and still finding a sort of space within what she wanted to do, was an underdog in her field, so being, an immigrant, not speaking the language of the country, being past an age that most would want to pursue being on a stage, all those things that would be negatives or, points taken off, she really was able to thrive past that. So I think I always grew up around people who were counted out. For myself, I wasn't the most popular kid in school. I had my experiences growing up as I, went to a bunch of different schools growing up. And so I felt like I was counted out in a lot of ways, so I felt like I just kind of always came from that sort of space where, like, the underdog was always thrived and survived, so even for me, like, being in the space that starting in music, I worked with an independent label, Slip and Slide Records in Miami, And, indies usually have a lot more of back then. Now it's so different, but, back then indies really just had a harder place and just a harder road to sort of figure out like their artists and their business and stuff like that. And so that was my first home as I sort of ventured into the business side of the arts and saw, my bosses and my mentors really just, figure it out, sort of still that sort of mentality in me as well. So I think I've always just come from a line of that. And then, transitioning into the television space, I worked under a Black woman, Haitian woman, Mona Scott Young, and sort of seeing how she was able to really thrive in a business and a space that we weren't meant to sort of thrive in on the business side of things. So I just always, I've been blessed to always just be around people that figure it out and thrive in situations that just weren't meant for them to really thrive in.
Yeah, like for someone who's been counted out, you've built an impressive resume. I guess the word would be evolved into the woman that you are today. So you just explained some of your journey, with Slip and Slide Records and how you transitioned from that. So tell us a little bit more about your journey to get to where you are today.
Professionally, yeah, I was a waitress. It's going to take it all, outside of the growing up in the arts and stuff like that. I was a waitress in college and a bartender, and I was working at a really popular comedy club in Miami. And there was a popular night that a bunch of like people from the industry too, and I met somebody there, Wendy Morgan. She was the vice president of marketing at Slip and Slide Records at the time. She came with a couple of the artists from the label, and we, had a good conversation. I wasn't really looking for anything. I was in college, trying to figure it out, still trying to figure it out after all these years. But I was a psychology major, then a social work major, then a criminal justice major, the college life, and like, okay, where am I supposed to go? So during that period, I met her. And, I always, as a waitress and everything, you're supposed to have a bubbly personality. And from there, she invited me to the office to have a conversation. She offered me an internship. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And, but I winged it and I figured it out and figuring it out. And from there, it sort of went from an internship to being offered a position within the management company of the label when they had signed some new artists. One of those artists at the time was Jagged Edge. Jagged went independent after their deal with Def Jam. And so there was a partnership there. And those were the first artists that I was working with alongside Trina. And so, those were pretty big names at a very young age to sort of work with. And from there, I just kind of winged it. I felt like I was put in opportunities and put in spaces that I may not have been prepared for from a educational background or a experience background. But, obviously they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time. And, thankfully I was put in these positions and it was like a flight, fight or freeze. And I fought my way through it, and I think that's just been sort of my track record, over how many years now, maybe like 15, 16 years in the business, has been just kind of figuring it out as I go, especially when I've been in opportunities or been in rooms that it's that self-doubt that you tend to have when you feel like you're in spaces that you're not supposed to be in, and it's like you're pushing away God's blessings for you. You're pushing away, where you're supposed to be at because you feel like you're not supposed to be there, but you are supposed to be there because that's where your blessing is supposed to come in. And I think a lot of us, we're put in these positions. Again, we're winging it, but it's because there was something that somebody saw in you that God knew you had. I don't want to go all the way spiritual if this is not the platform to do it at, but that's something that I really rely on in my life. And, I think that, it's pushing past that doubt, that self-doubt, and just knowing that you deserve a seat at that table, So yeah, that's been honestly like, there's been no magic sauce or formula in figuring this out. I think the magic sauce is just, whatever assets and things that God has put in my heart and in my life, and being able to just be a conduit to that.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned a couple times the word wing it, and based on what you've shared about your story and your beliefs and your background and your faith, you basically, it's like a faith it till you make it, not fake it, but faith it.
Amen. I like the way you said that. Faith it. I mean, I think a lot of us, like, we don't know that we already have the skills to do the thing. You know what I mean? And when you understand transferable skills, and you understand that this prepared you for this, prepared you for this, and prepared you for that, and I may not have an educational background in the field that I'm in, but I have these transferable skills. I'm detail oriented. I have a strong work ethic. I have great customer service. I know how to speak to people. I write well. So, like, those things are transferable in a lot of different businesses and positions. And I think if you sort of look at it from a macro level and you understand that, it's just about learning the field that you're in. I mean, if it's not like science-based or like a doctor or like something where you really need to know like that sort of like, rigorous study, I think that, a lot of skills that we have are just transferable, and you just got to hone in on those and figure out how what you have works in the field that you're in, and I think all those skills that I mentioned and then some, transfer into a lot of positions.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like majority of people have only tapped into maybe 10% of their potential.
Absolutely.
There's so much locked up inside of us, but because we doubt, we have fear, we worry, we allow the opinions of other people, or what our parents used to say, well, what will people think? What will people say?
Right.
Those old thought patterns. We allow them to limit us. But like you said, we have so many transferable skills that if we looked at it that way, rather than deny the opportunities that come to us, because you were saying that you were given a lot of these opportunities that you didn't feel at the time that you were qualified for, but you did it. You had the skills, or you were able to learn the skills. You had the ability to tap into, what's inside of you to do the job. But oftentimes some of us will turn down the opportunities because we feel that we don't know, or that we can't. There's these self-limiting beliefs that we have that hold us back. As I'm saying this, I'm thinking of a recent opportunity that I've been given. I attained a contract with a corporate organization that is basically paying me my annual salary, or more than my annual salary, to do a particular job. I've never worked in corporate, right?
So,
but,
right. And no, and I get it. And it's like, oh my God, like you work in the arts, you work in the industries, quote unquote, and you're like, oh my God, how is the corporate America going to accept me? But what's crazy is that I have a very, very, very close friend to me who's been in the arts for 20 years. He was, on camera, on radio, in front of TV, on a mic, and she is now working in corporate America. And she literally, like, last year, she's a mom, and she just wanted a different sort of lifestyle because she's raising kids. And it's those transferable skills. It's knowing how to take what you've learned. And, this industry just builds a certain resilience that you can't always find in those books. And now I'm an advocate for education and going to college. I've even been thinking about going back to school just to hone in on some skills and just really be, a master of my craft. But, like, there's a lot with this experience in life and situations that you're in, especially certain industries, and learning how to pivot. And, it's, open to everything, attached to nothing, and figuring it out as you go. Like, that's a skill. That's a real skill that you have to, like, understand. And so, like, the resilience that this business builds, especially as a minority woman, and knowing how to just kind of keep going. Yeah, she was able to transfer the skills, and now she's in corporate America as, an EVP, of marketing at a corporate company, and she's thriving. And it's, again, like, not to sound repetitive, but it's those transferable skills and the resilience that you build in, like, knowing how to shift. And I think for a lot of us, we've these past few years and dealing with, the pandemic and everything that comes from the aftermath of the pandemic, and people's just business as a whole, and people's, like, just work ethic and just doing things differently from prior to 2020. You have to know how to pivot.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to pivot, like, professionally, personally, if you want to keep hustling and keep paying your bills, like the people. But you just specifically down to the TV business, like, I mean, stuff is so different from the way that when I came up in it. There was only a few select channels in cable and premium that people watch, and you're used to the millions of viewers in one episode or 1 week. And now the ratings are different. The streamers, there's everywhere you turn, there's a new content creator, or a new content channel. And now, it's way more, I don't want to say oversaturated, because, I feel like there's a blessing in that, because there's so many spaces for people to, like, put out their content and put out, there's the opportunities for independent filmmakers, independent producers that, invest in their own equipment, or, invest in their own content, because they weren't given the space or the opportunities to, to sell their stuff to, like, the majors.
Yeah.
Now there's an opportunity for them. So I applaud that, but at the same time, like, if you didn't know how to pivot in those times and know how to, like, sell to the streamers and know the new way of things or technology, like, you're not going to survive in this business.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I went into a tangent.
Not at all. Not at all.
But yeah, like the art in pivoting, that is, like, I think the basis of, like, what my career and my lifespan as a professional has been. Is just learning how to pivot my entire life. So.
So I feel like that theme of pivoting, that like you said, the art of pivoting, I think that it's essential no matter what industry you're in, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in television, whether you're in, it doesn't matter. I feel like if you don't have that ability, then you will either end up, like, suffering or feeling stuck or in a position that you don't want to be in. When the pandemic hit, I was so used to, focusing on the mindset coaching and all those things that I was doing to monetize. I've been self-employed for almost 12 years. I was like, well, maybe I should get a job. But then I was like, okay, what do I know how to do right now that people out here need and would pay for, and that I could monetize? And that's how I ended up launching my other business, which is helping women entrepreneurs to publish their books using the same tools and resources as traditional publishers, because they're out here being declined these opportunities to share their expertise or their stories, when they can be creating their own legacy and monetizing and having full control. Because, I feel like, especially for women, there's a lot of power and control that has been taken away that we are now in a position where we could take back. So that allowed me to thrive throughout the pandemic. So it's, being able to pivot and not be, I think sometimes we hold on to things for too long for the sake of, oh, well, I've been doing this for so long, I need to.
It's comfortability. Yeah. It's being comfortable. Yeah. And that's okay. I think it's okay to be comfortable, but when that comfort is no longer serving you, that's the difference, because I feel like, how is it, we get to a place that we've succeeded at the goal, if we, and I'm sure you can relate with me on this, like, 5 years ago, even a year ago, we never thought that we would have gotten to the point that we've gotten to today. Like, I know for myself, sometimes I think about like, damn, like, I remember the household I came from, the environments I grew up in. And so, you know, being a homeowner or, you know, being in a thriving relationship or having a career or, you know, shit, having a pair of nice shoes. I mean, just, you know, like the minute stuff. I mean, for me, the, you know, honestly, I tell my mom all the time, I was like, you know, for me, it's so crazy. And it's something so small, but, you know, that we take for granted when we're growing up. But like at this age, you know, I go into a supermarket and I'm able to like freely pick what I want.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about the bill going in, you know, at the checkout.
Yeah.
Like something so small like that. I really sit back and think like, damn, I remember growing up, I wanted all the Lunchables that was at the refrigerator aisle. And I couldn't get all the Lunchables. But now if I want to buy the Lunchables out, it's something so stupid, you know, that you think about. But it's like, I can buy all the Lunchables. And I still eat Lunchables at my age. But it's something so small. But it's like, if you look at it from a macro perspective, it's like, damn, like, and I'm not gloating. I'm not sitting here because I'm far from where I want to be. But to know how far I've come, you know, and I think that sometimes we just don't sit and just really look back at and I'm guilty about this. I'm not speaking like I'm above this or I done grew past this. I'm still like this. It's a mental battle every day, you know, where it's like, damn, like I have so much more I want to do, but damn, look at all the shit that I didn't accomplish, you know?
Listen, pat yourself on the back for all of those things.
Yeah, man. And I think we don't have it. I think we don't. So I think like going back to comfort, I think comfort is a good thing because it shows that you're appreciative for the space that you have gotten yourself to. Yes. But when that comfort no longer serves you and it's not fulfilling you and you're not waking up grateful and happy to be comfortable, then that's when that comfort becomes something you have to push against and keep going.
Yes.
But it's okay to be appreciative in the space that you're in. You know, I think a lot of us, we're sort of pushed in this narrative of like, you can't be comfortable. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. But it's like, no, sit and smell the dandelions that are outside, thriving in the spring, you know, like that we're not given that sort of thing to do for just a second and stop and inhale and exhale and then you can keep going, you know.
I agree with you 1,000%. I feel like when we are in that constant keep going, that puts us into hustle mode. And I think a lot of us are in that hustle mode because that's become our trauma response from the lack of what we didn't have. So it's constantly chasing and chasing and chasing. But then when is enough? But I think it's beautiful, the example that you gave about, you know, as a child not being able to have the Lunchable and now being able to buy as many as you want, because that not only shows your level of gratitude and appreciation for what you presently have, but it's like, you know how they say, like, you know, not to necessarily look back or focus on the past, but you're able to reflect and see your evolution, your growth, and appreciate what you have today and still want more at the same time. You know, there are some people that are just constantly and don't appreciate what they have right now because they feel like they don't have what it is that they want. But that ability to see what you have and be grateful and appreciate even the smallest things is, like, in my humble opinion, what's been giving you all of those beautiful blessings that come from the rewards of what you're doing. Because if you didn't appreciate it,
go ahead. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I was going to say, if you didn't appreciate it, like, you know, then it becomes like I guess more of an ego thing or entitlement or what have you. But, you know, you speak from a total place of humility. Like, I can hear that. So I think it's beautiful.
I mean, and to be frank with you, Makina, like I have that I still battle with that a lot, because I'm a television producer, and our work is project based, like a lot of people in this industry, in this realm. And so I was working, there's a lot of intensity when you go into these projects. I'm a showrunner now, so I just finished my 7th show.
Nice.
Since becoming a showrunner, and those are very intense jobs. We're working 12 hours a day every day for a period of time, and I've always had long projects where the projects go for, upwards of 6, 7, 8, 9 months. And that's a blessing, because that means that, the bag, the check's clearing, but it's very overwhelming, because there's no, I applaud anybody that's found a balance professionally and personally, because I haven't. It's been very difficult, because for me, when you're giving 80% to your profession, 90%, 100%, where is there space for everything else in your life,
Right.
So for me, when I'm like in knee deep in these projects, I'm not eating right. I'm not flying to see my family enough. My house is, and I'm a big person where, like, I don't want to self-diagnose and say I'm a little OCD, because I feel like that's not really my diagnosis, but I'm very, like, particular about the space that I live in, so everything has to be organized. The bed has to be done. The fridge has to be cleaned out every week. And when I'm working like this and I'm on set every single day, all day, I come home and I literally, have takeout, sit in my kitchen, eat, go upstairs, shower, and go to bed. And it's this cycle that's like again and again and again. And I typically try to take a little bit of downtime in between the projects, if it's because I'm either developing my own stuff, and a lot of times it's hard to work on your own stuff when you're working on other projects, or just need a debrief. I need a breather. And it's crazy, because I was probably two years project to project. Like, I literally jumped on I was on one project for a year and a half in the West Coast, and then right away, had no break in between, jumped into another project, in the East Coast that I just wrapped. And I said, okay, I have a couple weeks before I really start to figure out, like, just, jump onto the next project. Okay, but I have time that I need to, I have some, development ideas in the back burner that I need to just get in on. I feel like almost guilty for just wanting to wake up in the morning, make a juice, sit outside, and read. I feel guilty about that. Like I said, I'm wasting time. I gotta go back and get on, get on the hustle mode. And it's crazy, like, just kind of reacting to what you're saying. Like, it's this trauma response, and I think it's like this, what did they say that Will Smith has? He has, is it poor man syndrome? It don't matter like how much you gain. You're always going to feel like I'm broke.
Yeah.
And it's like, listen, my bills are paid and I got food in the fridge. So I'm very thankful for the basics. So I'm good, but it's like, it's this poor man's mentality. Like, and it's never wanting to go back to what you came up from. And that's also, I think, it's the trauma response that you mentioned that we have when we just can't sit still and smell the flowers.
I get it. I grew up in government housing to a single mom. Like, I get it completely. I used to believe at one point, maybe halfway through being an entrepreneur, I used to believe that there was such thing as balance. And then I realized that I was totally out of whack with that, because I wasn't, like you said, the self-care. I wasn't focused on the self-care. And in these last few years, I've realized, instead of trying to chase balance, I am all about the harmony, because sometimes you may be more, work driven.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you. It's, and I think having a tribe around you that understands that I think it's so important and so powerful. You know, I know I have a really supportive, back to my mama, a really supportive mother, who understands that I'm out here, you know, grinding and doing what I got to do. So if I can't fly home, you know, every weekend or every other weekend the way I typically try to, she understands that, you know, and she's like, okay, well, you know, I remember how, when I was working in the West Coast for a year and a half, I was flying every other weekend to every 3 week, you know, every third weekend, flying back to Florida. And, you know, it was really taxing on my body because that, you know, one thing, the little, you know, flying from New York to Florida is one thing, but like that very constant back and forth from the West Coast to the East Coast, back to the West Coast, you know, like that bi-coastal life is tough. And I did it for a little bit. And, you know, and my mom was like upset at me for like how much I was putting on my body. And, you know, and I was like, but mom, I have to, there's, you know, stuff you got to do, stuff I got to deal with, stuff I got to go back home to. And, you know, but it's very taxing on you. And I just realized like, it's a guilt that we put on ourselves where we feel like we're not doing enough. And yeah, like back to the it's just letting it flow, but having the tribe around you, like my best friend, she, you know, like the people, my boyfriend, like they all sort of understand, like when I'm in this certain mode, they're not going to sit there and pressure me and make it harder for me, you know?
Absolutely.
So I think that's really important, just to have, it's important to have a support system. Like you're not meant to do life by yourself. You're not meant to, you know, to live life on your own and be a loner at all times. You know, yeah, important sometimes to have your own space and time to process is important, but we're not meant to walk this journey alone. So it's important to sort of surround yourself with the people who support your journey, that you support theirs, and understand, like in every relationship, you know, whether it's a family, a friend, a business, a romantic, or with yourself, like having that, you know, just honesty with, you know, I can only give 20% right now, so I need you to give that 80, you know, or vice versa. Like it's important to just, you know, be honest in that.
Absolutely. There are 2 points there that you mentioned that I wanted to highlight for the people that are listening. One, at the end of the day, we are wired for connection. So, you know, that isolation, it's not healthy. It's not good for you. It can actually be detrimental. So we're wired for connection. And the other point is that, you know, when you spoke about healthy community, that is one of the pillars for strengthening resilience. It's important to have a healthy community, a healthy tribe, you know, healthy connections and relationships where we feel safe and supported. Because a lot of us didn't grow up in those environments. So it's, you know, changing how our nervous system even responds to things by having those healthy connections and that tribe and that community around us.
Yeah, so true. I definitely, there's no way that I can be sane without, you know, the people that love and that I love and care for, but more importantly, love and care for me.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I mean, your mindset sounds like it's in the right direction. So what habits are you most proud of that have led to positive change in your life?
I think like, spirituality for me is very, very, very important. You know, I think that, you know, I as a woman, in this business, you know, I move around a lot solo, you know, whether it's a business meetings or projects, and I'm either living in the West Coast for some time or living in this city or going to that city or on tour or what have you. Like I'm alone a lot, you know, just like that's just the reality of this business sometimes. And I think that, realizing that I'm not alone, if that makes sense, you know, like realizing that I'm not alone. And a lot of that had to do with leaning into my spirituality, really understanding, Oprah said this once, so I don't want to make it seem like, you know, it was my original saying, but I really honed in on it when I saw her speak. one day, and she talked about understanding that when you walk into a room with every army of ancestry behind you. You know, your lineage, where you come from, knowing that you always have an army behind you. And I think really leaning into that. And even if I'm alone in my navigations in life and professionally, I'm not, because I have the army, the ancestral lineage behind me. You know, part of one thing that I'm thinking about now, before we got into the podcast and you had the questionnaire to kind of find out the topic, I think one important topic for me is grievance. You know, I had my entire family has passed away, so the only thing I have left is my mom and my half brother. And that, I grew up in a family, very close knit, Sunday dinners, church on Sundays. Our family was very close, and so when that trauma happened, how many years now? It was 2009, 2010. All of that happened in a very quick span. That made me feel alone. And I traveled to New York. From there I moved from Florida to New York, and putting myself in spaces where I was alone. My best friend always says that. She's like, you always seem to go where you don't know nobody. And, but I think that over time, understanding that I'm not alone is very important for me in my life, So I think, to answer your question, I think the most important thing is leaning into my spirituality and understanding that, my guide, my spiritual guide, my family that's transitioned into the next life are always with me. That I can sit down and talk to God and literally have free flowing conversations with the family that's passed. I think is super, super necessary for me to keep going. I think for me personally, my mother and I, we were like kind of all in growing. I'm speaking very specifically to my experiences. And so I don't know, I hope any of this can, who's ever listening can, pull something from it, but I'm speaking very, very personally from my own stuff, because this is what your podcast asks for.
Yes.
Is very personal experiences. So I'm trying to lean in on that. But yeah, for me, my mother's relationship and I was not the best growing up. And as I got older and more mature and became less harsh, for lack of a better term, on the expectations of my mother and myself, I think that became super important for me as well, to just keep going, as building the relationship with my mom as I got older, and really finding my people, my tribe, like the friends, and close knit people in my life that I can call for different, advice and needs. I think is really important, and kind of stepping out of my ego, and knowing that I can't, that if I can't do it, there's somebody who can help me do it. I think a lot of times we function on this like do or die mentality where we have to be the fixer for everything, and sometimes God puts people in your life to help you with what you can't help yourself in. So I think those things are really, really important in my process, and my mindset, and also and also kind of like when my mindset isn't this, being accepting of the other side, and just kind of going through that. I think we do so many things. That's why, alcoholism and drug abuse and things like that is so prevalent in our society, because people try to do everything to avoid, the mental battles, that they have to go through, and I think that we try to avoid it so much, as opposed to just understand, like, you got to go, in order to get through it, you got to go through it, and then get on the other side and realize, like, you were able to pass that storm, and I think, with all these things, we try to, like, medicate ourselves, and back to the spirituality, like, I did a year of fasting from, worldly things, for lack of a better term. I stopped having a glass, wine and alcohol for a year. I stopped going out. I stopped even putting on makeup like that for a whole year, to just try to, take myself away from those things that we're so accustomed to doing, to, like, block out what we have to sit with, So for a year, I had to sit with, if I had a bad day at work, if I had an argument with a friend, I had to sit with or how to process it, as opposed to, like, oh my God, I have such a bad day, let me go get a glass of wine, or let me go out, or let me, like, all those things that we tend to do, just because that's, like, that's what makes us feel good in the moment, but it kind of blocks away having to deal with the shit, So I think for me, even most recently, that fast, which I started at the end of 2021 and ended the end of 2022. It was super eye-opening for me. So,
wow. I mean, first, my condolences about the loss of your family. I can't even.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And then the discipline that it takes to fast for a short period of time, much less a long period of time. It's. I mean, just this entire conversation in general. Like I said, it sounds like your mindset is totally in the right direction, and healing it's a journey, it's a process. I think that some people just, if they haven't really been through anything big, or their assumption is that it's just time that things get easier, but that's not necessarily the case. It's the work that's put in. It's the coping mechanisms that you learn. It's, all of those things. It's definitely a process, and, leaning into, your spirituality for you has, like, it sounds like not only that it's working, but just in terms of even how light you sound when you speak about the heavy things. It sounds like it's definitely been helpful for you.
It has. It's again, it's winging it. Back to the winging it. No. Yeah.
Faith in it till you make it.
Faith till you make it. Like, it's just figuring it out as you go. I think, one thing we talked about before we started the podcast is I was really trying to, like, answer your question about the healing journey. And I think it's just that, a journey. I think there's going to be so many circumstances in people's lives where we have to heal from something, but then something else is going to happen that we have to heal from. And I think understanding that it's a process, it's a journey, there's no end to it. And I think with everything you have to, like, learn from, you get a little stronger and stronger. So the next hit or the next blow, not that it doesn't hurt or it doesn't affect you, but you were able to, like, look back and see that I went through this, or I gone through that, and I survived it. The toughest thing in my life was having to bury all those family members in a 5-month span. It was like funeral after funeral after funeral, and it would be hard to for some people to, like, survive through that. And I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm not saying it's easy till this day. But I think you have to understand the new normal that you have to just jump into. After you've experienced, like, the thing that you have to experience, like, from. So whatever you have to heal from, and just understanding there's a new normal after that. And then you look back. So, like, after that whole situation happened in my family, there's a lot of things that I feel like I can get through, because I went through the roughest thing in my life, at this point in my life, that's the roughest thing I've ever been through, is that. And I was able to, look back and see that I went through it, and although it wasn't easy and it isn't easy, I was able to survive it. So there's a lot of stuff that don't affect me now, and also, for that, it also helped to take away a lot of it helped take away ego, that dealing with that, because whenever I have a disagreement with a friend or a family member, or just we get into our ego and we want to prove ourselves right, and it's just like, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is it worth it? If something happens, we're seeing everything. The news is really messing with our minds, because every single day you're just seeing tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. And you sit back and think, like, is it really worth it? A really good show, by the way, that's really, I think, helping narrate also what I'm talking about now, is this new Netflix show that I was literally watching with my boyfriend last night, called Beef. Have you heard of it, Beef?
First episode, and I couldn't understand it. So, like, maybe I just need a moment.
Oh, you need a girl. When I tell you, like, it started, I don't want to be what is it, a spoiler? I don't want to be a spoiler, but like, it started with this like road rage incident between two people. And when I tell you, it's gotten so deep and so traumatic. By the end, I watched every episode, and at the end, you just like, I can't believe that all of this stems from road rage. And like, somebody, you coming out the parking lot, and you're not seeing somebody behind you, they be crazy, and then they leave and they throw the middle finger at you, and now you're trying to chase them down half the city, and you almost get into a crash. But then from there, it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and people die. It just became so like crazy. But it's like, it's all it's ego. It's ego for the person who beeps the car. Why you beeping at me? You middle finger. Why you putting a middle finger? You gotta respect me. And then it just goes into this like this rabbit hole of just messed up stuff that happens to both of their lives, off trying to prove their ego right. If they would have just let it go and realized that it's not worth it, then all the shit that you see in these, I mean, it's a great narrative for a show, but if you look at it from a macro perspective and the lessons you learn, it's like, ego really can be the devil, you know?
Agreed.
So, so it's like, so I say that to say, when it came to like dealing with, burying my family, I'm not going to say I'm perfect with it, but, I'm definitely more self-aware. And when I realized, like, okay, this is my ego, and that, is nothing more than just my ego, I try to take a step back and realign myself. But it still happens. I am perfect, but I think the self-awareness part becomes more bigger as you get older and you go through shit. You just understand your self-awareness. And even at this point, a big thing that's helped me, I've had to manage my ego. I manage people. I manage people, and managing people, skills are important, and understanding the industry that you're in and the project that you're doing, but a lot of it is managing personalities and knowing how to direct people and understanding how to respond to people that don't know how to respond great to things and knowing how to respond to the lack of knowing how to respond and redirecting. Like, again, it's the transferable skills that you learn in life. It's the process, and how, what I learned from here, how can I apply it to this or apply it to that? So it's, and all that stems from trauma, all that stems from tragedy, and having to pivot and understanding how to deal with things as they come, and all these experiences just like equip you better with how to manage the unmanageable or the unexpected. So it's all relative if you look at it, it's all relative.
You said so much there. I feel like we could unpack that in like a part 2 episode. so I'm definitely gonna have to have you back for a part 2. But before we go to the final segment, the rapid fire, I want you to tell people where they could stay connected with you online, where they can learn more from you and about you.
Well, on social media, I'm a terrible poster, but Instagram is I am MC Lopez. The company website is mclmedia.net. Is it the same for the rest? I think Twitter and Twitter is too, and Facebook. I'm so bad at social media. I need to get better. That's part of the pivoting that I haven't gotten to yet, is understanding the social media world and knowing how to like post properly. But yeah, that's how to connect with me on socials. And yeah, and thank you so much for this conversation. It was great. I didn't really know how it was gonna go, and I hope I didn't overshare. But I'm pretty much an open book. I'm not ashamed of the things to share, and the experiences I'm leading. So I thank you for this platform that you give to you gave to me and to every other guest that you have on the show, and just
finding
the commonality that we all have. We're walking this path of life. So super a lot of just props to you for having a platform like this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I will definitely have like all the links to your social, your website, all that good stuff in the detailed section below the episode, so the listeners can just click and connect with you directly. I try to keep the final segment like a rapid fire that you can answer one word or one sentence. But I'm also like a bit of a rebel. I don't like rules. So if you feel like you need to expand, feel free.
Oh, like a power, like a phrase, like a drop the mic moment. Ooh, let me see. Oh my God, I don't have one.
Okay, so let me. I'll simplify it for you. So if I'll ask you like a couple of quick reflection questions, and then you can answer like one word or one sentence.
Okay, copy.
Okay. If you could create one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would that be?
One law. And you want like one word answers?
It could be one word. It could be one sentence.
One phrase. Okay. One law that the world can follow. I'm trying to like not be cliche, because I feel like a lot of us have like the same sort of like phrases to use. Find empathy with anything and everyone that you meet.
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. Okay, when and where are you the happiest?
When am I the happiest? Oh, yeah. That's a loaded question.
When and where?
When and where? Say wherever I'm at, but I don't think I've gotten to that point yet. Where it's like I want to say I want to get to the point in my life that no matter where I'm at, I don't depend on external things for internal happiness. That's what I want to say, or what I want to get to in my life. But I think like my happiness is in good community, like in good, with people that I love and love me, like, and so wherever that is, it's not, whether it's a beach in Mexico, or at a fish fry in the back of my mama's house, like, or in my bed, like, I just, it's, if I'm surrounded by the people that I know really fuck with me, and that I really, that are my people, I'm happiest there. Yeah,
love it.
I'm big communal person. Like I appreciate my alone time, but I love hosting people and having people around. Not a plethora of like randoms, but like really
intimate.
People that love me and I love them. Yeah,
I get it. Okay, what is something that other people value but you don't?
That other people value but I don't. That other people value but I don't. social media. And I need to get better with that because I really have a messed up relationship with social media because I feel like I have like I don't want to say it's a distaste. I haven't pivoted to figuring there. I know there's benefits in social media. I know but I just haven't gotten there yet.
Right.
I haven't taken the time to study it yet. And that's really what it is. I think it's like, I have this like, because I just, you know what it is? I be seeing people like on the phone all the time. And it'd be really annoying me because I'm such a, like, I love the human connection and like, I'm still old school. Like, although I understand the world we're in and the Zooms and the Google Hangouts and I appreciate that, and I know that this is a space that we're in our lives, but I will jump on a plane quick to go meet with somebody because to me, there's nothing more valuable than sitting face to face with someone, seeing their body language, seeing their facial expressions, and really feeling them. Yeah. Like I still think there's a value to that the newer generations, they don't have that, they don't understand how valuable that is to somebody, or at least to me. So that's something that people value that I haven't, but it's my own fault. And I know I have to get better in that. So it's not anybody else's fault but my own as the relationship with social media. Yeah.
I get it. Like I truly believe that social media is what you make it. Like I have friends that, they have their 9 to 5 and they use social media just, for fun, for jokes and memes and things like that. But then I guess because I've been self-employed for so long, my focus with social media is either like connections or to inspire or to educate. Yeah. So when I connect with people online, the end goal is to build enough of rapport and connection with someone that I can take that relationship offline. And that's where I've had some of the most amazing connections with people that I've met virtually.
And you know what? And I need to get to that mind state. But I think my mind is so jaded by the stories that I hear and the things that I see. And when I scroll and I see, this person, because it's the mask that you put on social media and then the reality that you set. And I'd be a little paranoid in my head. Oh my God. But it's my own, it's the relationship you make with it. So I feel like I need to hone in and focus on the good and wear that out. Cause I'm like, cause then when I see whatever, it's just, I need to get it. That's all. I can keep going on for this, but it's my own battle with it. So.
I get it 1000%. Honestly, Mari, I appreciate the extra time that you've given me today. I appreciate your energy, your honesty, your transparency, the realness. I just love it. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. I thank you for having me is all I could say. I hope that this is a good conversation. Your expectations have been fulfilled.
Listen, there was so much value. So thank you.
Thank you. And I look forward to hearing it and, connecting with anybody on social media. So if you gotta, the way to connect is if you DM me and you say, I heard you on the podcast with McKinney, then that'll be your open door. There we go.
Yes.
It gotta be how you connected with me is how we gon' flourish this relationship. So thank you again for the conversation.
And to all of you healers out there, until next time, subscribe on all platforms. Don't forget to rate the show, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And I just want to thank each and every one of you that listens around the globe to help the show rank in the top 1.5% of most popular podcasts out of over 3 million shows. Thank you. We want to hear what resonated with you in this conversation. Feel free to screenshot this episode and you can tag Mari on I am MC Lopez. You can tag myself at The Real McKinney Smith. A healthy community is a healing community. in a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. So let's continue to heal her.